Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever the hell time it is from wherever the hell you are. Thank you for joining me, John Royslin with the Witching Hour podcast. With me tonight, a different kind of guest, one that I'm very, very honored to have, one I'm very intrigued and interested in talking to, Mr. Andrew Scott Bell. The name might not ring the bell, but the two movies that you have seen, you've loved or hated, and the sequel that is coming out, I guarantee you're going to recognize Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, Part 1 and Part 2. Mr. Andrew Scott Bell, composer for both films, as well as many, many other um, music applications on his resume, obviously. But Andrew, welcome and thank you for joining us on the Witching Hour today.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. It's good
I
to see you, John.
I appreciate you taking the time. So I'm going to cut right into it. Winnie the
Yeah.
Pooh. How did you and Reese? I apologize. I
Reese
probably
Frake Waterfield. Yeah, it's
Freak.
great.
Okay, Freak.
Frake.
Okay,
Frake.
Freak Waterfield. How did you two come? How did you two end up with this marriage between the two movies? Initially, of course.
Yeah. I remember. That's a great question. Thank you. I remember when I first heard about this movie. Uh, they say Los Angeles is the biggest small town in America,
Right.
and I think the horror community is even more tight knit
Oh, of
than
course.
that. So I
Yep.
think we're like the biker bar on the outskirts of town where everybody hangs out. So we were everyone. You hear about movies coming out before they're even announced in the trades, just because like a friend of a friend of a friend heard about this movie. So I heard about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey over a year ago, maybe even about 2 years ago at this point, when they were like when they just started to go viral. I think it was like May, maybe, so not quite 2 years ago. And I just thought that sounded like such a fun idea and a great way to get attention for young up and coming filmmakers to use public domain IP like that in such a surprising and shocking way.
Right.
And that really is the brilliance of both Reese and Scott that they took that approach and that it worked so well. Love it or hate it, this movie gets attention, right?
Sure.
And so I looked up the movie on IMDb. Came home from whatever meeting I was at when it was mentioned, and I found Reese Frake Waterfield, and I looked him up on Instagram, and he was already getting hate from people like, you're ruining my childhood, and he was taking screenshots of the comments and posting them on his Instagram story and saying like, that's what I want to do. I want to ruin like the entire world's childhood.
And that's the brilliant. And I'll tell you what, he's taken that too, because if anybody who has not seen his page on Instagram, it's right there under his name, Winnie the Pooh, writer, producer, director, ruiner of childhood memories.
Yeah,
I love that.
exactly.
I
Yep.
absolutely love that. I think that's genius and brilliant to run with it.
Just run with it. And that's the kind of person he is. He just like, the death threats and stuff that he gets, and he gets a lot, they just roll off his shoulder. It just means he just thinks of it as he's doing something right, in terms of horror at least. So I just responded to his Instagram story and I said, can I help you ruin those childhoods? And I think he got a kick out of that. And there's more to the story, but that's the short version, and we kind of just rolled from there. I
So
love working with Reese because he's so playful and inventive, and he's down to at least hear and try anything that I suggest. And he's got ideas too, and we bounce off each other really well. So it's been fun.
Well, let me ask by association, I have heard and read a lot about those threats, and people were pretty adamant about it, it seemed. Did any of that ever trickle down to you as well?
Yeah, though far fewer than Reese and Scott. I think I've had three death threats.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, so three death threats and then one additional one that was kind of like a death wish and not like a threat, like more like I hope you die kind of a thing. And I don't does that border on yeah, and I, in addition to the threats that were actually, very serious and that were like I instantly blocked that person and like
Sure.
you can select any other accounts they might create. I just did that and said I'm not even engaging.
Right.
I do get a lot of things that are people being like, "You're evil," and how dare you do this to children? And my general thought to all of that discourse about Winnie the Pooh, being turned into a horror icon. Really, I see that as that's where this is going. But my response to that is that, like, turning childlike and innocent things and twisting them into horrific things is no new thing in the horror genre. There's, clowns have been twisted and turned into horrific characters almost since the at I don't know, the 40s, 50s, certainly the 80s. Music boxes, childlike creepy dolls,
Sure.
even Santa Claus. I mean, there's no shortage of taking innocent things that children love and
Right.
making them twisted in a horror movie. And this, I just see this as a public domain extension of that
Sure.
classic horror tradition. So anyone who's really upset about it just doesn't, maybe just they're just upset about horror movies.
Well, after the release of Winnie the Pooh Part One, which I did happen to go see in the theaters. I know it was select theaters in this
Uh-huh.
area, and I'm in Maryland, in a very rural part of, so it was about a 40-minute drive each
Oh,
way,
wow.
and it was very select of those few theaters that were there. It was a very select area, or driving, an
Yeah.
hour and a half north to Pennsylvania to go to Philly or Jersey or something along those lines. Um, so, I mean, the crowd response was very, there was a lot of laughing.
Hmm.
The people there, there was a lot of jump scares, which were to be expected. But it was a very lighthearted, it was a very dark film. Don't get me wrong by that. Probably one of the darkest I've ever seen with the tone of it.
Uh,
But people had fun with it. And it was a childhood memory of mine. I'm not gonna lie.
Winnie
And
the Pooh was?
Winnie the Pooh. I can
Yeah.
remember having the books that were bought to me by my parents, being read
Yeah,
and learning how to read by them, as a matter of fact, and then watching the animated series on Disney, or not series, but the films and so forth.
definitely.
And so we had a good time at the movies. The poster is, I would tattoo that on my back as a full back piece. I think it's probably one of the most brilliant, beautiful posters,
I
artworks
think
I've ever seen.
you're talking about this one. I still have a copy from
That
from
that
the
that is
Mexico
it.
premiere.
That is
Yeah.
it. I think I just think it's. I mean, how can someone in the horror industry, as a fan, how can that not draw you in, unless you
Oh,
are obviously
absolutely.
offended by it and are one of the people saying, "How dare you?"
Right.
And I don't know how many horror fans actually brought that point up and were offended by it, unless they were horror lovers, but they were also a mom or a dad of young children, maybe going through that series at the same time with their little ones.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Um, had a good time. It was not what I was anticipating. Um, I had a good time. I have heard a lot of positive things about the sequel coming up.
Oh, yeah.
I really have. Much like the Terrifier movie, every time a new one comes out, you get a higher budget, you learn from whatever, you move forward, and it gets bigger and better each time. And
Hmm.
I have heard a lot of good buzz about part two, especially when they're adding new characters from the old storybook.
Yeah.
Now, have you? I mean, obviously, you as a composer, you have to watch the scenes to be able to compose, think of, and get a feel for and compose the music for it,
Right.
to be able to apply it. Have you seen the finished product?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty. As I was scoring the movie, as I was writing the music for it, I would get new edits and new versions with new VFX or cleanup type of things. I mean, the in terms of blood, there's so much more practical in this movie than the last one. But VFX in terms of like what's on the phone screen when there's and what's on the computer screen, or so I would get new updates. But then even no matter what the latest one I get, I'm always so pleasantly delighted to go to the premiere and see the final color grade, the
Mm-hmm.
way that because what I get is very raw footage, very washed out, and that's intended, so that the person who does the color grade has all the information that they can like darken this spot and lighten this spot and bring out the yellows or something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I get to see that. I get to hear the final sound design, all the, sound effects and stuff that I might get pieces of here and there from the person. I work really closely with the sound designer on Pooh 1 and Pooh 2, Ryan. He's fantastic. And so he would send me, here's a new export of what I'm working on. But just to hear it all come together, and there's still always some bits that I didn't get to see while working on the movie. So yes, we went to the premiere in London, March 11th at the iconic Prince Charles Theater there. It's a really
Oh,
great
wow.
indie. It's kind of like London's version of maybe like the New Beverly. It
Okay.
plays indie cinema and has great snacks and great people, and they cultivate some really great, old movies and new movies that are just coming out that are maybe not in the main theaters throughout London. So it's a really cool theater. So I had never been personally, so it was great to go and celebrate with everybody. And I will say, like this sequel is a blast and a half. It is they something I really admire about Reese and Scott because it's very easy to get as much criticism as they got from the
Hmm.
first movie and to just, ignore it and, like a lot of people say, like you need to have a thick skin, right?
Say challenge accepted and make another one.
Yeah, so I saw Reese doing this throughout the year. Like what they did was he said challenge accepted, and then he would post polls on his Instagram story, like what do you want to see, or like a question where you type an answer, like what do you want to see in a sequel, and then he would go into like comment sections on like Fangoria or Bloody Disgusting or Dread Central and like talk with people who were criticizing the movie. Well, what did you want to see? If you didn't
Okay.
like this, what? Oh, you want to hear them talk more? Oh, that's cool. And then he took all of this stuff and like accumulated it together from both critics and harsh critics and fans and said, this is, I think, what everybody was maybe expecting to see from the first movie that we can give them in the second movie.
Hmm.
And that's why they brought on Matt Leslie, who's an incredibly talented writer who wrote Summer of '84,
Hmm.
to kind of pen the script alongside Reese. Reese and he came up with the story, and then Matt penned the script. They so it has more plot, something more that you can like sink your teeth in and follow along instead of just, girls in a cabin kind of a thing.
Right, right.
And the characters talk. We have new characters. There's more practical effects. One of the big criticisms of the first one was the use of CGI blood, which was just a result of the budget, really, to be honest. They really upgraded the creature designs. So this is really is a result of what the fans and critics said they wanted and want to see from Pooh. Um, More campy one-liners, stuff like that. So the few reviews that I've seen come through, because they did send some screeners out, uh, have just been like glowing. I mean,
Nice.
it's I think Rotten Tomatoes needs 5 reviews to from certified critics to give a rating, and
Right.
we're at 2 fresh so far. So
Okay.
if we get 3 more fresh, that would be a horror miracle.
Hey, tell them to send one my way. I would be honored to sit down and watch it. I would. That I would. So, are you a horror fan by nature?
Yeah, I love horror, though I came to it very late.
Okay.
I know a lot of people have their horror origin stories where they like sneak down the stairs and they watch Chucky behind their parents' back or something like that.
Sure.
I didn't really have any of those, though I did wake up in the back seat of our station wagon at a drive-in movie theater while the T-Rex scene from Jurassic Park was happening. Uh, as a kid in the back seat of a car watching
That's
a T-Rex.
horrific, man. Sure.
Yeah, so I guess maybe that is my horror origin story. But
I
yeah, I
love
mean,
that.
I came to it a little bit late, in as an adult, seeking out the
Hey,
thrills and stuff.
better late than never, though. Welcome to it.
Absolutely.
So, tell us a little bit about your history. Where Mr. Scott Bell originated from, musically, let's just say. Where did you
Sure.
start off with?
I was very much interested in art, and I wanted to be a comic strip artist, like like is it Tim or Jim Davis, the Garfield, or
Jim,
Calvin and Jim
Jim.
Davis.
Yep.
I very much wanted to do that, and then I wanted to be involved in animation, and then maybe I thought I wanted to be a director. But when I found music, that's when I think it like clicked. But I think I found music through film. And I think all of those things have the through line of being storytelling. I think I've always wanted to be involved in telling stories to people, comic strips, making people laugh, but still telling a story, animation, directing, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Um, and it was around, I think when I was like 7 or something, Forrest Gump came out, and my parents bought the 2 disc soundtrack by it was mostly like Bob Dylan songs and
Mm-hmm.
rock songs and stuff like that throughout the decades of that movie.
Right.
But the last track on the second disc was a suite of orchestral themes from the soundtrack. And I remember, because I listened to those 2 CDs all the time, but I remember the first time I actually listened long enough to get to the last track on the last disc, and it like ignited my brain on fire. It was like the lightning bolt that started the forest fire of my passion for music. And just hearing it and hearing the way that the strings played with the piano was such an origin moment for me, that I actually took my stereo from my bedroom and I brought it downstairs for like a month, or maybe more, and had it on on the upright piano in our living room, and so that I could learn how to play. Still know how to play it. Well, I'm not good at piano, but I know how to play it. And it's just, I learned that whole thing. And even just listening to, I think it was really important that not just the piano part in the beginning, but then there's I don't remember, I don't play that part as much, but that part is all strings. And that's all orchestra. And I think like learning, like listening to all those strings and all those instruments, and then trying to parse out the notes on a different instrument, I think was really integral, like introduction to orchestration and like the ideas of composing music. And then from there, I would just like, I was so young that obviously I wasn't scoring movies, but I was like writing songs on the piano and like reverse engineering, like inventing the movie that goes along with those songs.
Sure.
And we'll make sure that this is the short version of the story. But eventually, I played trumpet in middle school and high school, and started to take a music theory courses in my high school, and then went to composition, went to university to get a bachelor's in music with a degree in composition and music theory, and a minor in film studies. And then a couple years after that, my wife and I moved to Los Angeles in 2015, and it's been crazy, been working here since. So
I've seen that's awesome. Congratulations on the found
thank you.
success out there. I have talked to a few people that, I'm packing my bags, I'm heading to LA, I'm going to be a star. Uh, no,
Yeah,
they're struggling, if not on the
it's
streets.
tough.
It is.
I
It's
think I
rough.
think the key for anybody is like that the goal can't be to be a star, right?
Right.
Like I'm not a star, but I feel fortunate to be working.
Yes.
And the satisfaction that I get out of working is not anything like anytime there's a movie in theaters that is big enough for, like Pooh 1 and Pooh 2 basically have gotten me some wonderful interview requests, and I get to meet some fabulous people like you.
Thank you.
But those are all the cherry on top of the work. You know what I mean? Like,
I will tell you one thing though, after having left that film, um, I did not know your name, or who was the composer for the film at the time, until I got home and did some research on it. But the music, the score, was one thing that was definitely highly noted about part one.
Oh, thank you.
I will be honest about that. My wife and I and her dear friend went with us, and we all commended your job
Wow.
for
Well,
part
thank you
one.
very
We
much.
we absolutely loved it. It was very it was had great score, great sound, great timing, and it really it really shows a person how much emotion. Hmm, how can I put this? Without the music, without the score, you have a very plain, dry film. The movie adds so much element and so much emotion, whether it's comical or horror or
Mm,
love and heartfelt, whatever it is, it's if it's not done well, it's just background noise
mm.
in my opinion. Um, you know, two of my all-time favorite albums that I'd ever bought was two soundtracks. One was for Platoon. The score on that still almost brings me to tears.
Mm.
And the second one I have bought numerous times because I've worn it out was Interview with a Vampire.
Oh,
Strictly,
fantastic.
strictly for all of the, all the instrumental stuff. All of the composed work is just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And I don't think people in your line of work, the composers, are given enough credit because you really bring so much added life to the film.
Oh, that's
An
very
actor
kind.
an
Yeah.
actor can do a great job, his best performance, and you can watch that, but you can't feel it without that background noise. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, not noise, but the emotion, the heartfelt emotion that you have brought to that screen. It
totally.
adds it
I see
so
what you
much
mean.
to it. So I thank you
But
for
I
that.
still I do think it needs to be there. It needs to be there in some way.
Oh, of course.
You know, like name a piece of music that has made you laugh on its own. You know what I mean?
Right. No, right,
Or
right.
like I mean, you can be maybe jump scared slightly by. Uh, but this is just me, deflecting the compliment. But so what I should say is thank you. I just know. I'm humbled by it, and I agree that music brings so much to films. But it's a team effort too.
Of
I think
course.
that the tension has to be there for the music to bring out the tension and highlight it. And uh, I must be getting like a phone call or something. Is my video freezing for you?
Not freezing, but you are definitely lagging a little bit.
All right, it'll catch up soon. Sorry about that.
No, no,
Sorry, YouTubers.
no. At first, actually, I thought maybe I had said something offensive because you didn't move for a moment. Then all of a sudden, you said something, and it was like watching an old Saturday afternoon kung fu movie because then your mouth all of a sudden, yep. See, now all of a sudden you're moving in high speed, catching up there.
Oh, I just took a sip of coffee. I think
Yeah,
we're getting there.
yeah. It must be strong coffee because there you go. Because boy, you threw that thing down.
Oh man. Okay.
Uh,
Are we
uh,
there? We're there. We're okay. I think we're caught up now. Man, that
okay.
was rough. I try to use my phone because it has a better camera. I try to use my phone as a web camera, but then like if I get a text message or if like it kind of glitches
Right,
sometimes.
right. No, I'm with you. So, actually, before, um, so my next question to you, Andrew Scott Bell personally, what is your next step after part two? Obviously, what is your next project or big project, your goal one day to be have done?
Well, my next project right now, I'm working on a movie called Hell Hath No Fury, which is a really beautiful film. I cannot wait for people to see it. It is about kind of the lore, or not necessarily even about this, but it involves the lore of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and another character a lot of people don't know about or even mention. Maybe they don't mention it purposefully. Lilith,
Mhm.
Adam's first wife. And it's a really fantastic story, beautifully shot, amazing, really well acted. I'm scoring it right now among all the chaos of the Pooh release. It's kind of a tricky thing. But I'm just so delighted to be a part of this movie. I can't wait for it to come out. I'm not sure where it's going to go.
When
And
can
then
we look forward
before
to that?
Yeah, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I know that it'll be somewhere in the late spring or something. I'm hoping it gets some kind of distribution. I'm not sure where it's going to go. I
Okay,
don't,
okay.
I don't really, I'm not really, even if I wasn't working on even if I was done, even when I'm done working on the music and I'm just, as a composer, I'm just not part of those
Okay,
discussions.
gotcha.
Like I don't
Understood.
know where, until I'm told, I don't know what the plan is for the Blu-rays for Pooh 2, for example.
Gotcha.
Um, but I think, to answer your question about like what my kind of dream job would be, uh, I used to think more specifically, like I want to do a Star Wars show, or I would love to do a Mission Impossible movie. Both of those are true, but I think more recently, like instead of thinking so specific, like Mission Impossible, the scores to Mission Impossible were huge to me growing up. I bought all the soundtracks from the show and from the '90s movie, and then the sequel was scored by Hans Zimmer, and the first one was Danny Elfman, and first movie. So those, and then James Bond were a huge, I just loved listening to the James Bond music. I had like a James Bond cake for like my ninth birthday or something.
Nice.
Um, so I think to answer your question, I would love to do a spy thriller. It doesn't
Nice.
have to be James Bond or Mission Impossible. It doesn't have to be a big franchise. In fact, maybe it's even more fun to like create my own stamp on a new spy thriller
Sure.
franchise or idea.
Sure.
But I would be have so much fun doing a spy thriller, especially one that could lean into those, brassy, jazzy tones a little bit. I think that would be so much fun to play with.
Oh, sure. No, and I definitely wish you the luck in the future with that. I hope that can actually come through for you one day.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you.
so part one of Winnie the Pooh came out February, last February.
Yeah,
Here we
February
are,
15th.
here we are just over a year later. We've got the sequel coming out. The next 2 days, you are going to be Universal out in California. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Universal Studios in Hollywood is part of they have the theme park there, but it's actually the theme park is at the studios, so they're filming, just a little bit away from where people are screaming on roller
Oh,
coasters.
wow.
So I've always
I
thought
didn't
that was
realize that.
fascinating. Yeah, like right down the street is the Warner Brothers studio. In fact, from certain parts of the theme park, like when you're walking around, you can like look over like a railing and see like little fake city streets down there, where they might be shooting. It's really interesting that they did that. So we're playing Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night at 7 p.m. at the Universal City Walk AMC, which is kind of like they have a bunch of restaurants that I think Florida has a City Walk too.
Yeah.
You park and then they make you walk through all these restaurants and
Yeah.
shops and stuff.
Yep.
And one of those is a movie theater, and everyone in LA knows it because they have great laser projection. A lot of people enjoy seeing movies there.
So you will
Um,
be there. Anybody else from the cast, in case any of my California friends or listeners might be in the area to swing by?
Absolutely. And we're going to have a kind of a full house because on Tuesday there's a Q&A at Century City AMC, which is just down the road. And that Q&A will have Reese, the director, Scott, the star, who plays Christopher Robin, the writer, Matt Leslie, cinematographer, Vince Knight. Let's see, they have some, I can't remember her last name, but Kelly is one of the actresses in the movie. She's going to be there. There's a couple more actors that are going to be there. That's Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at AMC Century City. And at the same time, they split us up because that one sold out. So they thought, let's sell out, let's open
Awesome.
another Q&A somewhere else. And
Sure.
that's when they sent us to the AMC at Universal. So at Universal on Tuesday, it'll be myself, the composer, um, Tigger, the actor who plays Tigger,
Okay.
um, Louis Santer. His name is Louis Santer. Natasha Tassini, who was in Pooh 1. You'll recognize her as the girl in the hot tub.
Okay. Gotcha.
She plays a little fun cameo if you can, pay attention and try to find her. She's in one of the scenes in this movie as well. But she's just she's such a joy. I had so much fun with her at the Mexico premiere, so I'm glad they grouped us together in the Q&A. I'm
Awesome.
glad I get to see her again. And
Awesome.
then Nikki is one of the actors who plays Kara. She's going to be with us there. And I think, who's the fifth person? I think that's it. I think there's four of us at that Q&A. But then, anyways, I know this is long-winded. I told you I'm long-winded. Wednesday and Thursday, both Q&As are merging
Oh,
at AMC
nice.
Universal. So there will be 10 of us for Wednesday and Thursday
Very
at the
nice.
AMC Universal. The Q&A might be chaos, but like, come hang out with us, bring stuff to sign, and because it's rare that you get the director and the writer and the cinematographer and the
Yeah.
composer, and then a bunch of actors and the producers, and like it's
That,
rare to get us all together. Like,
that's like its own horror convention plus
it
adding a
kind of,
couple more
yeah,
names to it. That's great. That's amazing. So yeah, any of our and I know California is not exactly a tiny town, but
yeah,
anybody out there that's listening up, do yourself a favor, man. That's gonna be a great time regardless. Rain,
yeah,
shine, whatever you guys got going on out there. I would definitely be there if I could, if I wasn't a complete opposite coast from you guys, because it definitely
right,
sounds like a
yeah.
good time. Andrew Scott Bell, I want to thank you so much for joining us today in the middle of yet moving forward with another project, um, pushing forward in support of Winnie Part 2. Congratulations on that and best
Thank
of
you
luck
so
with the
much.
film.
Thank you.
Um, I hope to hear from you anytime you want to sit down and chat some more. I'd love to have you again.
Oh, I definitely, it would be a delight.
Have a great time over the next couple of days and enjoy yourself.
All right, thank you so much.
Boys and girls, this is John with the Witching Hour podcast. Andrew Scott Bell, composer, Winnie the Pooh Part 1 and 2, starting tomorrow. So get out there and support the indie horror. And as always, you guys, keep it evil.